Good evening, everyone. My name is John Hybush, and I have the honor of being the Executive Director of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you here on this rainy evening. In honor of our men and women in uniform who defend our freedom around the world, if you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize a few special guests we have with us tonight, and I'd like to begin with a welcome to one of our members of our Board of Trustees and the former governor of the state of California, Pete Wilson. Governor. Also with us tonight is our terrific Congressman Elton Galgley, who is retiring after 26 years of terrific service, and his wife Janice. Elton. Our Ventura County Supervisor, Peter Foy. Peter, thank you for coming. Now, for those of you who were patient enough to go through the book signing line just prior to the event this evening, you know this wonderful woman is here with us tonight. She's a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, and the president of Gingrich Productions. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing Callista Gingrich. So we have with us tonight a very special guest. I know that if I were simply to give the typical dinner circuit introduction of Speaker Gingrich, the one where you list every accomplishment of the speaker's bio, I promise you we would be here all night and even Newt would get bored. His list of achievements in politics, his involvement in lifelong learning, his expertise in national security matters, his business interests, his philanthropic endeavors, the dozens of books he's written, just the list goes on and on. So allow me for the moment to presume that all of us here are already well acquainted with the important milestones in the life of one Newt Gingrich, because I want to focus in some part on the future and what I sincerely hope is Newt's place in it as it relates to ideas. So let me explain. It is no secret to anyone here that the party of Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan took a beating 3 weeks ago. Republicans lost the battle for the White House as well as seats in both the House and the Senate. Now, most are still stinging badly from that defeat. I know this from firsthand experience, as many seem to be visiting the Reagan Library in droves lately in what seems to be a quest to remember a great president and remind themselves of his ideals, his optimism, and what he did to inspire Americans to greatness. We should remind ourselves that while our 40th president had the uncanny ability to reach into the hearts and minds of Americans, it was Ronald Reagan himself who said, quote, "I wasn't a great communicator, I communicated great things." Today, we can recognize that great things spring from great ideas. We can also take heart that there are leaders in our time, like Speaker Newt Gingrich, who have great contributions to make in the way of such ideas. Now, there is plenty of precedent here. When Newt was first elected to office in 1978 in Georgia, his party, like the Republican Party today, was in the wilderness. Jimmy Carter occupied the White House, and both the House and Senate were safely in Democrat hands. With the election of President Reagan in 1980, Republicans took control of both the White House and the Senate. But in the House, where Newt Gingrich went to work each day, he was badly outnumbered. Now, I worked as a Hill staffer for a congressman whose office was only steps away from Newt's. And I can assure you, for representatives like Newt, the minority was often a lonely place. The Republicans hadn't held a majority there since 1954, and there was not a soul alive who could ever imagine a Republican majority again. Oh, except for Newt. With no seniority, but a tireless work ethic, a vision, and a mind filled with ideas, it was Newt Gingrich who sat in the back benches of Congress and methodically devised a strategy over several years to make the Republican Party the party of ideas once again. It was Newt that devised the famous Contract with America, a plan that gave Republicans more than something to run against in the historic 1994 elections. He gave them something to run for. It was Newt who rallied the faithful behind these ideas and took back the House after 40 years in the minority. It was Newt who helped engineer passage of welfare reform and who balanced budgets during his time as Speaker of the House. He's been on the national stage ever since, pushing America and the conservative movement forward with his ideas. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to please join me in welcoming to the Reagan Library Speaker Newt Gingrich.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. It's always an honor to be back at the Reagan Library. I want to thank John Hybush for the great job he does of really providing leadership on a day-to-day basis. The degree to which this library is a model of educating young people is really remarkable. And a lot of that goes to the energy, the drive, and to be candid, the fundraising ability that John brings to this. So John, thank you for your work, and thank you for the introduction. I hope all of you will join Calista and me in keeping Mrs. Reagan in your prayers. She is a remarkable woman who has spent a lifetime serving this country, and we all cherish her as she continues to be active and continues to play a role here at the library. And so I couldn't come here and not mention Nancy for at least a moment. I also want to say, Governor, it's great to be back with you. We did a lot of things over the years. He from being mayor in San Diego to U.S. Senator to governor, to a leader in a variety of ways. I've looked to Pete Wilson and to Gail as great people who represent a willingness to serve their state and their country in an important way. And I want to say to the Gallegleys, because it's always a family engagement if you're out there, thank you both for serving the country. It really does make a difference. And it's great to be back here. I didn't know you'd be with us, but we're thrilled to have you here tonight. And Calista and I have launched what we've called an American Legacy Book Tour. We're very fond of the library, as you know, and we made a movie called Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and I want to recognize tonight Kevin Knobloch and his wife Randy are here. Kevin was the director of that film, and we're just always thrilled to be with Kevin because he's done such a great job in the movies we've done together. So, and so we come back to the Reagan Library from a unique background, and you may wonder why we talk about an American Legacy Book Tour. You may wonder why Calista has created an alliance with Ellis the Elephant to introduce 4 to 8-year-olds to American history, and why I've written as many novels as I have about American history. And I thought the best person who could explain our commitment to American history being at the Reagan Library was President Reagan. So join me for a minute. We want to show you part of President Reagan's farewell address, his last speech from the Oval Office, and I think this captures perfectly why we have an American Legacy Book Tour.
There is a great tradition of warnings in presidential farewells, and I've got one that's been on my mind for some time. But oddly enough, it starts with one of the things I'm proudest of in the past 8 years, the resurgence of national pride that I called the new patriotism. This national feeling is good, but it won't count for much, and it won't last unless it's grounded in thoughtfulness and knowledge. And informed patriotism is what